Welcome to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every podcast episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe right now so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And please check out the previous ones. We have an awesome Facebook community. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. And today I'm so pleased I've got Kim Woolner. Kim's an independent HR consultant and she's also the founder of Holding Space. Kim, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No problem at all. Thank you for asking, Brenda.
What will we start with? We'll start with the HR, okay? Because that's a big thing that's really important to a lot of businesses looking to scale. What is it that you do then as you go into organizations and help them with their HR challenges?
Yeah, my whole career has been predominantly in HR. I like to say 25 plus, but it's a wee bit more than that. So as an independent, I was an HR director up until a couple of years ago. And then I came out and have been in consultancy since. So I've been lucky that I've been working from day one through constant referrals. And that has been anything from your operational employee relations challenges through to strategic organizational restructures. And then obviously coming in to do ad hoc projects and development workshops as and when people need them.
Okay. And Holding Space, what do you do there?
So with my other hat on, I'm a complementary practitioner. I work with the batch flower remedies and essential oils. So I sometimes bring those into my coaching sessions or my workshops for something a little bit alternative, but I'm into my natural remedies. So I'm very much focused on a proactive approach to wellbeing, and I'm also a certified menopause coach. So I do tend to work with women in that demographic in terms of how to improve their health and wellbeing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you've got a third hat. Yeah. So tell us about this. This is your voluntary role. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I am actually employed by,
sorry.
so it's an interim role, which is going permanent actually. So I work part-time for the Russell Anderson Foundation, which is in Aberdeen City. So the foundation exists to support children in socially deprived areas of Aberdeen and we offer free weekly multi-sport coaching programs, not just football, but also tennis and other things like basketball. And we have a number 9 partner schools, primary schools in Aberdeen, which we support. So we rely on fundraising and sponsorship for those. We also run free sports camps for those children during the school holidays, because otherwise they wouldn't actually get the opportunity to have access to those.
Awesome. Just as a woman and maybe a bit menopausal or whatever. How do you juggle all of that?
Sometimes I wonder, I've actually let go of some of my voluntary roles over the last 12 months, but seem to be as busy as ever. Because on top of that, I'm a board director for Visit Aberdeenshire. And I'm also vice chair of the CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute Personnel and Development, the North Scotland and Islands Committee. So I also do that. I also did mentoring at Peterhead Academy, which has taken a break, and the Young Enterprise, which I'm not doing this year because they're not, Peterhead Academy are not doing the Young Enterprise competition, but it's actually given me a wee bit of breathing space because I do the Russell Anderson work part-time. I can afford to be flexible in terms of my hours of working around. So yes, I would say again, menopausal, that sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think for me, that's when the health and wellbeing becomes ever more important, because you have to take that breather and look out for yourself and a little bit of self-care and compassion for yourself in order to be able to support or to do the other things you want to do.
So I've got a bit of a motto that says healthy body, healthy mind, healthy business.
Absolutely. And I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about the people that are listening here, I'm targeting women who want to start or scale their business. And sometimes one of the things I think that might hold us back is not being able to do anything, and then we not being able to do everything, and then we drop our own self-care first before we drop anything else.
Yeah, and I think you stand in your own way. It's the story and narrative you tell yourself in your head. And that's why it's important, I think, as an independent. And I've certainly felt this. So I'm still on a journey in learning. There's people like yourself being in business a lot longer than me. But as long as you, as I said, are compassionate about that and understand it's learnings, not mistakes. I think as women, we question ourselves a lot more, and coming into when you do reach a certain age, I do think there can be a loss of confidence. You get overwhelmed more quickly. I think it's important to trust your voice, even when it shakes. That's what I kind of go. So you will be questioned, you will be underestimated, and you're sometimes ignored. And I'm not trying to make this stereotypical. Working within the energy industry, I've worked in the construction industry, I've worked across a variety of industries actually, with my background in HR when I was in-house. But working in those male-dominated industries, I sometimes think you become a different person. You have a mask, or you become something because you're working in that environment where it's not quite dog eat dog in a sense, but you might not naturally work to who you are. So you put on this, and I feel sometimes you're feeling maybe not listened to or ignored. But when you work for yourself, the biggest thing is your intuition. It's one of your greatest assets, actually. So use it. Stop asking or waiting for permission, because actually you can do what you want in a sense. There's never going to be a perfect time. You're never going to have a perfect plan. And as I said, sometimes making those mistakes are learnings. Probably people have heard this in the past, whereby I was coaching someone this morning, actually, funny enough, and telling her women will look at a job and go, I can't do that. But I was kind of like, why are you saying that? Because you're telling yourself, your mind, your brain will believe that you can't do that. Stop doing that and start saying what you can do. Men will look at a job, and even if you can't do 2 out of 10 of those things, they'll apply for the job, and women won't, because they'll look at that and say, those are the 2 things I can't do, so I'm not right for that job. So go on that. I think that's quite important. So it's important to know your worth. It's important to have a circle that's trusted. You don't always need to climb the ladder, if that makes sense. Your circle's important, your network's important. I think, people would say I'm probably a serial network in a sense. I do love a chat. I do love going out and meeting people and building relationships. I think we've done less of that post-COVID, but I do think it's important, because it's those around you and who stands beside you. And I think you learn more of that when you go independent too. Who's there for you when you need them, rather than when they wanted something from you when they were in-house.
And I think as women, I think we need that more than men do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're quick to focus on, and I think as human, I do a lot around that as well. There's no negative and positive emotions. We are told that. I work in a bit in an emotional culture as well, because it's how you feel at work. If you're dreading going in on a Monday morning, that tells you a lot, because your feelings will drive your behaviours, which drive your actions and drive your culture of the business, which is what, from a leadership perspective, it's important to remember how you make people feel. And having gone through all the downturns and outplacement and all that's happening just now, even, it's important you exit people in the right way so they're good leavers, because they're taking your reputation with you.
Yeah.
And actually how you make them feel, you never know when you're going to come across, or if that person will ever come back to you, or whatever it is.
And who are they going to tell about their experience working there? Because we're talking about the ups and downs of the Aberdeen economy, shall we say. That business is going to pick up, and it's going to be looking for staff again. And if they've got a whole heap of bad leavers who've said that was a terrible place to work, it's going to make it more difficult for them to get good people on board next time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing is women, again, from a female, because we're talking about obviously female entrepreneurs, tend to be more authentic, I think. I have learned a lot, I would say, coming out of industry and working in that type of industry where ego is important. I think it can be locally, because people are paid well, but it is materialistic in what you have rather than potentially what you've done. But I've always been the point of lead with authenticity. And as long as you can stand by that, I think you don't need, again, it's a human thing, but herd mentality. I've always been one to say, I want to do something slightly different, or I'm not necessarily going to. Sometimes that could be because I'm being stubborn. perhaps, but at the same time, I've never really wanted to follow the herd. So I've maybe always done not anything radically different, but just, I'll say, follow your heart, your intuition. I think you get more confident as you go through life and with experience to be able to do that as well. You will always be questioned, but I think if you kind of are more in tune with yourself, then you always know what the right thing to do is.
I'm working hard on this intuition thing myself, okay? Because, yeah, what I've noticed, and I'm sure lots of other people and the people that you've worked with the same, that hindsight's a great thing. Oh, I knew there was something that just didn't feel right, but you don't, it's not until afterwards you go, I shouldn't have done that. So it's about learning to understand that feeling that doesn't feel right and to take the action then rather than say, oh, yeah.
I would say that in my career, there's probably 2 jobs, I'm not going to mention any companies or anything, but that I wasn't sure about joining and my gut told me otherwise. But my head was kind of like, oh, I see this as a great opportunity or as a chance to diversify my experience. And I've taken them. Both times I've lasted in the job 12 to 18 months maybe, and come out, would I have come out battered and bruised? But certainly with life experience or a job experience.
Learnings.
Yeah, exactly. But then I wouldn't be where I am now. So it can be quite, at the time, you'd think, oh, you feel like you failed or you've not done what you wanted to, but it's not, because I do think things happen for a reason. Like you're saying, absolutely. How I work with my complementary things is through energy. When you walk in a room, you can tell if there's been an argument because you can cut the atmosphere with a knife, is what people say. Nobody needs to say anything. You get the vibe. Same as when you go into a party and it's high energy, it instantly makes you feel happy and uplifted and all the rest of it. And you're around people that you want to be around. That's energy, because you don't necessarily have to have that conversation or know. It's just, yeah. Yeah.
So this sort of the complementary and the holistic stuff. Do you think, how can businesses get the, I'm trying to think the way to word this question, but there should be an overlap there that means that businesses can get the best of their staff. There's that HR stuff that you do, and there's the holistic stuff. What's the best way of bringing those two together?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, you have to talk the right language, because if I start talking about some of my things, people go, she's a nut job, or it's a bit woo. So it's knowing what people are receptive to. So it's listening, actively listening to what the conversation that you're having with that particular organization or person, to understand what they are looking for, what the need is, what the objective is.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes, I would say definitely. And when I'm doing my workshops, I will sometimes build in the emotional part to it. But if I start talking, I think in Scotland generally, we don't talk about our feelings quite a lot. With a bit, no. But especially in business, to talk about your feelings. But actually, as I've said already, it does make sense, because how do you feel going into work, or how do you feel about that particular manager, or whatever it might be? And whatever happens in your environment is quite contagious as well. So when I do my work, I talk about the F word. I make it into a bit of a joke and talk about the F word. And then I'll be like, not that particular F word that we talk about at work, but
it's not the dumb. So we can say fuck, but we can't talk about feelings.
Exactly. Yeah. So I talk about that in the sense that I do a switch on it and talk about it in quite a pragmatic way, so that people aren't uncomfortable talking about it. But then that comes into vulnerability. So how much, and whether you'll know this from your coach, how vulnerable are people, or how vulnerable do they want to be, or are they able to be when dealing with these kind of things? And I think we're fortunate in the sense that leadership now, that I see, I've been doing this stuff for quite a while and probably not great at, I think I've been doing that for quite a while, and people are now talking about it. But at the same time, I'm not going out and shouting about it or talking about it. I think, which is why I'm talking about my identity in a sense. what am I? We've talked about 3 different hats there, but there's maybe a wee bit more than that. So what is my specialism? Do I need to specialise? That's someone else in business. Or am I a generalist? Am I a jack of all trades? But that can then dilute. I think you can overthink things as a woman. Sometimes it's just a case of let's go with let it organically grow, or what do people come to you for? And then that can map out your plan rather than you trying to overthink it or put something in place that's quite definitive.
Good, good. I wanted to talk to you about something quite close to my heart, menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the menopause costs businesses a lot. When women are going through that and they lose their confidence, and it has physical and emotional and mental impact on a woman, which then impacts on her work. And with your HR hat on, what can businesses do to make sure that they're not losing staff and that they're supporting amazing, capable women to keep their job and maintain their effectiveness in the workplace while they're going through that sometimes lengthy process?
Yeah, and I think it impacts women differently because we're all unique. And we're all looking for advice and what works. But what works for me necessarily doesn't work for you, when it depends on your lifestyle and your nutrition and all the rest of it. But I think what's important, it's great that we have a more conversation around it, and there's more legislation around that as well. But we've got to know it's a natural progression in terms of a natural life stage. It affects all women, regardless. And there's obviously surgical menopause and things. But typically within that demographic, when you've got a lot of work experience, and actually women are being lost or quitting jobs because it's often misunderstood, overlooked, or whatever. And I think that one thing is that awareness, certainly for line managers, to be able to deal with it. It's not necessarily nice to have, like you're saying, it can affect productivity, affects retention, people's well-being. So there are the physical symptoms, which can be easy to diagnose, but there's a lot around cognitive, obviously the brain fog type, difficulty concentrating, and emotional symptoms. So combine that with work-related pressures, especially of what's going on. People lose confidence, feel overwhelmed and embarrassed perhaps, or think they're being judged, and that might not be the case. I think I find that certainly from menopause in a workplace perspective that some companies are quite open to this workshop, or lunch and learn is open to everyone, because some men go through it, but it might not be their wife in that particular organisation, but at home, whatever, because some people go through quite a horrendous time and it can affect them in a different way. So it's about normalising, for me, the conversation. There's things you can do, obviously legislation, but I think if you are a type of organisation that treats your staff or how they should be, then really that's just part of the course in terms of the policy or the legislation coming through, because you're doing those things already. So things like flexible working, hybrid working, that always helps. Practical things. I think it might have been Aberdeenshire Council were quite happy to provide fans on desks. Some people might be okay with that, but some people might not want to have that on display to show people that they need. But temperatures in office spaces, taking breaks. I'm always as a leader in-house, was always one that I'm not a clock watcher. It's more about output and productivity in terms of how you achieve it. It's better for you to work not late at night, but early evening or start a bit later. For me, it's about the output in terms of achievement rather than the clock watching and the hours you must be in the office from 9 till 5. But I think it's about listening and talking to the people concerned, because those small changes can just significantly improve the comfort and productivity level. But you've got things like benefits, so access to, you now have the wellbeing programs or EAPs, the employee assistance programs, which have menopause support. So it's possibly having access to those type of things, or mental health support. You'll hear a lot more around that. So yeah, I think the important thing is normalising conversation, but also educating women, because we all want a quick fix or a sticking plaster because we want something now. But it's important to know something. If you're changing something, you're probably not going to see a change for about 3 months of consistently doing something. whether that's taking supplements, but also predominantly you should be looking at your nutrition and lifestyle, because that's the things that's going to have a bigger impact. And then you can look at all the peripherals. So, a lot of companies will put a menopause policy in place. And I would say this about any policy that's put in place. It's not just about menopause, but actually, are you actually demonstrating what you're saying your policy does? It's not just a tick box exercise.
Yeah, we've got a policy on that.
Exactly. Yeah. But actually, are you compassionate, empathetic when you're listening to people? Are you actually demonstrating what you say you're doing? But it is definitely for line managers, they're navigating a difficult course because their jobs have got harder with obviously post-pandemic when there's been hybrid, there's been a lot more mental health support maybe required, more changes legislatively, but in the workplace and the culture and environment, whereby it's helping managers understand how to handle those types of conversations respectfully.
So a couple of times you've mentioned actually about managers. And I think this is in order for businesses to grow, there needs to be, as businesses scale, there needs to be layers of management. And I think sometimes people are given management roles, or what they end up being is the ones in the middle, just the buffer between the leaders and the doers, if you like. Mm-hmm. So what's your take on the managers in the middle?
So they've got a tough job. They are, like you're saying, sandwiched between being a doer, but also having to manage up, not necessarily but also be delegated down to. So that can be difficult to navigate as well as trying to do their day-to-day. And same old in terms of, but some people get promoted because they're good at their jobs, but they're not people managers.
Yeah.
And then they're not given the support and assistance to help with their confidence to be people managers. And this is the way we've always done it. So I think it's about encouraging, there's two things, giving them that training and development to help them do their jobs effectively. What does that look like? So it might be slightly different for each organisation, but it's also encouraging leaders to model that openness and understanding, which is not always, because I think when businesses are cutting costs, training and development is the first to go. For me, leadership development, something I again looked at years ago, but we wait until people are leaders or managers before we give them training. Why aren't we doing that before? Why are we doing that part of their professional or personal development, in the sense that when we're bringing graduates, technicians, whatever that might be, general employees, if people have aspirations or want to develop in a certain way, or we spot that potential within them, why aren't we providing that development before they get to that stage? Because then you have seasoned where they've already practiced it in the workplace and dares are taking that leadership position. Not having the title doesn't mean you can't demonstrate those skills in the workplace.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, as many people listening are probably thinking back to a particular time in their career where they've seen that playing out and could have been handled differently. Yeah,
absolutely. And like we said already, it's learning from. If people repeat those mistakes, then that's slightly different. But actually, every day is a school day, as it were, in a sense. Not if you're continually making mistakes along the way, but actually, it is being able to give the headspace to sit back and reflect, give people, like coaching. I do think that coaching should be a part of organizational development. I know it's easy. There was a period we talked about coaching culture all the time, but it doesn't have to be necessarily presented in that way. It should be part of normalizing the conversation when people should be offered coaching as part of their development opportunities. Yeah.
And there's so many different types of coaching, and like at different times in people's career, they have different needs in terms. Yeah.
And I think because, probably we're talking just over 20 years ago, I had a period of working in London for 12 years when I worked in media companies. And NLP was the thing at that point, maybe just over 20 years ago. And my HR director coming in, I was a manager at the time, working for Discovery. And I remember we were firefighting, reactive. We were literally in tears one Christmas because the payroll manager had walked out the day before. We had to make sure everyone got paid. It was horrible.
Okay. Yeah.
But very much I remember even myself being in that reactive, negative mode, just firefighting all the time. And that was my first experience, I would say, probably of coaching and recognizing that. She was an NLP coach, which didn't really understand or anything, but actually over the course of that following 6 to 12 months, probably, we restructured the team. But actually, on a day-to-day basis, we didn't know at the time she was actually coaching us to step us up and to focus on solutions rather than what was going wrong. Let's be solutions focused. Okay, what could we do here? And actually developing us to be able to go in and say, so rather than go to her with a problem, it would be, okay, you have a problem. What are your options, or what you can do about it? Come back to me with your. And then it got to a stage where it was like, oh, I had this problem, but this is how I've dealt with it. And then allowing you to be more confident in terms of stepping up and how you worked and partnered with the business. Yeah.
Coaching's been it's a big thing for both of us. But who else? What and who has been your biggest supporter during your journey?
I would say always when I talk about a boss, it's Jane Taylor, who was my boss at Discovery. But I've also had colleagues who I continue to keep in touch with. And again, probably predominantly at certain stages in my career, that would be one, my manager who gave me the opportunity. So my first role, which was amazing, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. But Mary Ormrod, she was it was personnel when I thought how long ago, personnel manager at English National Opera. And I didn't have generalist experience, and she gave me that opportunity. So I went in there and developed, because I was more training and development specialist at that point, and moved into a generalist role when I worked there for 3 years. So that was amazing, because that was my first role within media. And it was just like bright lights to London and just wow. So I would say media, because that allowed me to hone my creative. I realised I was more creative in terms of my approach and thinking. I also wanted to do things slightly different. So I actually started, which I didn't realise until years later, my wellbeing journey was always part of that. So I was working in wellbeing in the workplace over 20 years ago, in fact, probably 25 years ago, by introducing things for employees, because it was always for me about how you support and look after employees, because they will help you run the business smoothly, all those types of things, higher productivity, morale, etc. Yeah, so that was when I moved from, it was the energy industry I came out of, into media, which was a baptism of fire. And I realised, oh my God, I was used to managers doing what the policy said or the handbook said and all this. And I went into media and it was like nobody did anything. It was complete, not quite carnage, but baptism of fire. So I learned very quickly, but I absolutely loved that kind of environment because it played to my creative side. And it's given me that whole perspective. So I would say Mary to start with for giving me the opportunity, Jane certainly for, I've said, the coaching and my first introduction, although I didn't recognise then. And I've had other colleagues along the way. Although I've done coaching I've did my ILM I started that 6 years ago, I think it was. Although I'd done it, I think that as a woman as well, you always want the credibility of, I've got a certificate or I've done the training.
You don't need to talk to me about qualification. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah.
And then I did the IACF coaching certificate with Sarah Smith. She's local to Aberdeen, so I did that.
She's been on the podcast. Yeah.
All right, okay. I'll have to listen to her one then. But I did mine with her, so that was great fun. And I realised the ILM was more theoretical, the ICF was much more practical, which suited my learning style much better. And I think that's something else. Understand what environment you work best in, and also what learning style you have, because that's different for everyone, and you can align that to what works best for you. Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to holding space, okay? Because this is about entrepreneurship, Skill Her Up is about starting and scaling businesses. So you started that a couple of years ago?
Gosh, no, more than that. What would it be now? Would it be 5? As many as 5? Okay. I set it up, but actually I did. So I've worked with gone to complementary therapists for about 30 years. So when it probably was described as woo-woo. And my first one was reflexology, and I went for health issues. And it was recommended to me, someone in Aberdeen, actually, when I still was in Aberdeen. And she then recommended the batch. So we call it backflower remedies. You may know rescue remedy. A lot of people use it for stress and anxiety. You can get that in any local chemist shop. So that was recommended as a particular remedy for procrastination. I must say, I am still a procrastinator. However, it does help. And I was studying at the time, so it was recommended for me. So I started using the flower remedies and they had a profound impact on me personally. I just used them. And then probably about 15 years ago, I was down in London. I went to Nelson's pharmacy, the organic pharmacy, and did my first level just out of interest because I wanted to know more about them. And then I proceeded to do my second level. And then I thought, I might as well do my third because then I've only got one more to do to be a practitioner. So that's what I did. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I never did anything with it. I became qualified 12 years ago. And I also work with essential oils. My sister's an aromatherapist, actually. And I've always used oils it's my first aid kit. I'll go to lavender oil and tea tree oil, the two multi-purpose, fantastic, powerful oil that I always use for bruising, burns, antibacterial, anything like that, viruses. So I've used those, brought my boys up on those actually. One of them's a bit like, no, nice and that. But when we were younger, that was the first thing we used to go to if they had bumps or bruises, as I said. So I've always had an interest in that. I started working with a particular brand, which is the doTERRA brand, which some people may or may not have heard of. But I found personally, I work with them on an emotional as well as physical level through my work that I do on a complementary basis. And I find them they're potent because they're proper 100% pure essential oils. And although you might find some on the shelf that say that 80% the essential oil market's actually adulterated, so it's got chemical fillers in, or they're cheaper for a reason. Whereas with the doTERRA, they are 100% pure organic where possible, and they really do work. And I take some of those internally, whereas obviously the old-fashioned way of doing those, even with my sister being trained, you don't take oils internally. Funnily enough, I had a really bad cold over the weekend, which has totally shifted because I was taking turmeric and ginger essential oils in a veggie cap, and it's helped shift my cold and chesty kind of cough really quickly. Having worked with those, I went through a certification for that as well. So I blend those in, actually. I run workshops where you can make up your own rollers, but also I sometimes incorporate those in terms of my workshops, depending on what they are, predominantly wellbeing. And also within my menopause group, I run the menopause group in Peterhead for the Peterhead Football Club Community Foundation. So I do that once a month. So sometimes I'll use oils for grounding and just to help people into a calm space. So talking about that, I just finished my meditation and mindfulness teacher training last month as well. So it's something I'm sitting on just now, but I would like to do something with it. But it's all these different modalities that I can just pull in and use if I intuitively think people might need them or someone might need something different. So yeah.
So is it something that's just going to sit there as a side hustle, or is it something that's going to take over?
Do you know, never say never. And I like the flexibility of what I'm doing in the sense that I'm working 2.5 days with the foundation, gives me some stability and continuity in terms of what I need to do. I know what my role is there. The HR, I work my clients around that, which works really well at the moment. And then my complementary, I must admit, it's probably taken more of a backseat this year, but it's absolutely something that I want to develop and do more with. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, we will watch this space and see where it goes, because every big business was a startup at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And I think you need to follow your passion because then that comes through. I can get too passionate about things and then I overwhelm people with information. So that's been a learning from me in business, I would say, actually, as well. To start with, I just wanted to give everything to everyone. And you have to realize you can't. I think as women, we also feel guilt if you don't always price yourself at the right price point either, because you want to give people things, or you overdo things because you feel like you have to justify how much you're charging. Whereas I think, again, some people are like, that's the cost and that's it. But, I'll give you this and I'll do that for you. Or you overwork it and end up doing more than what you should.
Pricing and money mindset comes up in a lot of my coaching sessions, for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, we don't do ourselves any favours sometimes.
If you could go back, Kim, and meet your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give her?
What advice? That failure is not necessarily the end of it. It's not the final step. You will get over it. It's information, because that will inform what you do next to a point. And I think that successful entrepreneurs, regardless of who they are, have always gone through things or periods where they might have failed. But you get smarter. And I think the other thing is to protect your energy, because boundaries will be another one you've come up against, I'm sure, Brenda. Mm-hmm. It comes up for me personally. I'm good at coaching or telling other people, and I don't do it myself. But you are literally the engine room of your business. So you have to rest, have that self-compassion, put boundaries in place, because otherwise that's when it can get blurred and then deplete that energy. You're not then working to your true potential.
Brilliant. I've written that down. Protect your energy and your boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Yeah. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you, Kim? Is there anything that you want to add to the conversation?
I don't think so. I've really enjoyed this conversation, actually, I just like to say.
Oh, I'm glad. A lot of people come on, they're a bit nervous about being on a podcast, and think they use the term public speaking. But this is not public speaking, it's just you and me having a blether.
Yeah. And then I love a blether.
Have to meet up and have a blether in person sometime.
Definitely, I'll take you up on that.
Listen, Kim, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been it's been a real pleasure. And thank you to you for listening to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and join the Facebook community at Scale Her Up. That's my phone. Just decline that. Sorry. I'll start again. Where was I? And join our Facebook community at Scale Her Up. It's having a bit of a revamp just now, so watch this space. Please connect with me, Brenda Hector, on social media and drop me a message to let me know you're enjoying the podcasts, or even better, pop a review on iTunes. I'll finish by reminding you that only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over $1 million in turnover than women are. When we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, it will add 250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it and make a massive difference.